Hi, I'm Anatole. Welcome to my review of Mr. Miracle number 5, written by Tom King and drawn by Mitch Gerads. Received a score of 9.3 on Comic Book Roundup from critics and a score of 9.5 from users on Comic Book Roundup. Here is the plot summary courtesy of Comic Book Roundup. How do you spend your last night on Earth? Why, with the one you love, of course. Having been condemned to death by the new High Master, Mr. Miracle is going to have to return to New Genesis for his execution. Before he does, he and Big Barda have one last date on Earth. But if Scott Free truly is infected by Darkseid, as Orion says, you can bet some dark force will intervene. Only to what end? Scott does something very selfish in the beginning of the issue. This is Tom King. He tells Barda she can stop him from dying if she asks, essentially giving her partial responsibility for death or for his life. She lets him be selfish in order to save his life, perhaps in the hope he can evolve, perhaps with no hope at all. And Tom King does use passive heroes. You see that a little bit in The Vision and The Sheriff of Babylon. And it's one of the criticisms that people have about his writing, the passive heroes. Here, it's part of his intention because Scott is in kind of a Godardian no exit. Sartrean, Jean-Paul Sartrean no exit. He's in hell, and hell is his own making. This life after life that we perceive it might be. Because reality seems so strange, we don't think that it's the real world. It's some other world that he's trapped in. For Scott, his choice is no choice because he can't be certain about the reality that he finds himself in. Then really death has no consequence because he's not in a place where life and death have any meaning, if it's not the reality that he came from. If it's all corrupted by Darkseid, what does it matter if he chooses life or death? But, however, when it comes to Big Barda, he makes an active decision. He chooses Big Barda. So, there are two important lovemaking scenes in the story. And the first one, Big Barda ties him up, and he looks like Jesus with all the bondage. And they talk about how he can escape from anything. But in that scene with Big Barda, he chooses not to escape because it's an expression of his love. Then the second lovemaking scene is the final hours before the Death Guard are going to come to escort him to his execution. And there he actively chooses to make love to Barda because for him, that relationship on any level is going to be real. Even if she is only a simulacrum of the real thing, he's always going to choose her because she is his anchor. However, when it comes life versus death, he chooses death because he has these issues about trying to prove if there is a reality past death. So he has no stake in life. But his stake in life is Big Barda. That's his anchor. So in the end, I think that could have been expressed a little stronger. Grammar is tough. And by this I mean that just before he goes to the Death Guard, I think the writer Tom King kind of means to express that he's made his decision by having him put on his full Mr. Miracle costume. But I think for the reader that's not a strong enough expression of choice. And I think Tom King, he gets confused. He made the quote earlier that, here it is. So here's a second quote from Tom King. And I'm again thanking Susanna Polo for these quotes. This is a book about being captured and trying to escape, whether that's good, bad, ugly, or possible. The 9-panel grid symbolizes all of that. It literally puts bars between the reader and the pictures. This is useful information for us to know, by the way, about his intention of the 9-panel grid. It creates cramped spaces on the page where the action occurs, giving the reader a sense of being squished, shut in. It's the form reflecting the content, an old but good trick. And there, I have to disagree, because Coleridge, the poet, was also a critic, and he came up with the idea of the fallacy of the imitative form. And that is that something doesn't become stronger when the form reflects the content. In some cases, it becomes weaker. So play about boredom does not need to be boring. And I think Tom King makes the mistake there by making us feel passive about a passive character. And instead of framing that a passive character does nothing, I would argue a passive character does things internally. And so then you need to show the reader that there's still a conflict and there's still a decision being made. It's just not through action, it's through feeling or attitude or philosophy. And he does an excellent job of that in the beach scene, where we get to see maybe an idea of why Scott Free made that decision to commit suicide the first time, and why he might make the second decision to go to the execution squad. But we need to see that externalized. And I think he could have done that by using callback. The story about that Mr. Miracle gives us in issue 2 about the boy inadvertently revealing that his family's hiding Jewish people, and so leading to the death of everyone, including himself. The punchline to that story, Mr. Miracle could have quoted just before going to the execution squad. And then we would have known that's the decision. By him saying that story, he's making the decision for a reason. He's not just going along with what others are doing. He's decided that. And I think then when Barda makes her decision, we could sense that both characters are striving towards something, that maybe one of the characters is striving towards the wrong thing, and that he is being rescued at the last moment by someone else's correct decision. And that it's not that events are being decided for him, his character is being revealed in the internal decision he has made. And then the third thing I want to talk about for the story beats, is the reference to the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby conflict. And I mentioned this before, that Jack Kirby left Marvel in the late 1960s and moved to DC, where he created the Fourth World. And one of the reasons he did that was he felt he wasn't getting the recognition at Marvel that he deserved. That a lot of what currently Marvel uses for their intellectual property, all those characters, those were the result of Kirby, and that Stan Lee just put the gloss on them through the way he dialogued the panels, the pages that Kirby gave him. So the Marvel way was that the writer and the artist would talk about the story. The artist would draw out the panels without any dialogue, give it to the writer, and then the writer would write the dialogue on top of the panels. And because there was no written script, that allowed there to be dispute about who really came up with the story. And so Kirby would claim that a lot of the plot ideas were his, and he brought them to Stan Lee, and Stan Lee would add a couple things. Jack would go off and draw them with one idea of how the story should go. He'd give them to Stan, and then Stan would change them, and to Jack Kirby's mind, change them for the worse in many ways. So because of this lack of recognition within the company, with Stan Lee getting a lot of the credit for the stories that Jack felt he deserved, and also Jack felt he was not getting the monetary rewards that he deserved for all this work he had done, he left. He went to DC. And in Mr. Miracle, the first series, the one that was written and drawn by Jack Kirby, he created the character Funky Flashman. And Funky Flashman is really Stan Lee. He talks like Stan Lee. And the fact that Tom King is also drawing us back into this conflict, we see at the beginning of the episode, beginning of the issue. That's my TV review critic coming forward. I do many TV reviews. If you don't watch me for that, please come back to my channel and watch one of my TV reviews. But what I was getting at right here on this page, when they're doing their tour of Los Angeles, kind of like the final day tour, and they go to the Mann's Chinese Theater, and you can see, oh boy, I'm going to try to point at it. This is not going to work, is it? There. Oops. Yes, there. Can I zoom in on it? Yeah. I think you see where it says Jack Kirby in the hands. That, in real life, those are the hands and signature of Stan Lee, not Jack Kirby. And it's almost as if Tom King is saying, if the world were a fair and just place, that would be Jack Kirby, not Stan Lee. One level. Second level, it's again saying that this reality that Mr. Miracle is in is different from ours. Things are a little changed, a little wrong. And those are the hints that he has kind of ended up in a place where he shouldn't be. But I have to wonder at the end of the episode when Funky Flashman is killed, if that's not kind of a snide gallows humor joke about the feeling about the contribution of Stan Lee towards Jack Kirby's work. And now let's talk about the art. So Mitch Gerads gives us a lot of blue in this issue as the key color, and to illustrate reflection, intimacy, and then the offset color, the world of fame and glitz or fiction, is yellow. Let's see if I can draw that up very quickly for you. So here we are. Oh, I don't think that's safe for work, even with, is this good? Yeah, this will be okay, I think. Yeah, it's safe for work. Just on the verge of not. But this is one of the lovemaking scenes, all in blue. There we go. And then we can also see blues here when they're on top of the valley looking at the lights of the valley. So that's the key color. And then the yellow comes with Funky Flashman and the sunset, sunrise. So here's sunset, sunrise. Here's the yellow, the secondary color. Put that in there. Here you can see the background of Mann's Chinese Theater's in yellow. And then Funky Flashman is wearing a yellow shirt. He's got the red, he's got Mr. Miracle colors on his jacket. And then also you can see yellow as the highlight color, the offset color, contrasting color, when Funky Flashman and the Death Squad come to get him. There you see the yellow. And then this is an excellent page for the second thing I wanted to mention, is that the art's very expressive in this issue. So a lot of emojis and icons and color blurs, and you can see that in the Funky Flashman panel right there that I'm holding, the stars just popping out of nowhere. And then down below, those circles are called Kirby Crackle, named after Jack Kirby. And then also, I believe there are hearts. Oops, hold on. Here we are. There are hearts drawn in the page. Yes. So you can see that here, the hearts, to the right of Mr. Miracle's head. And then you can see a little bit of the color blur, that yellow coming down his face there. And it's, again, Mitch Gerads has said that he draws on computer, but his main interest is always to kind of make it not look like a computer. So he uses blurs and dirty colors and stipple, which is an old comic book technique of adding color by using these dots, these red dots called stipple dots. And here at the cemetery, Oberon's headstone, you see the blur, the color bleed, the blue, kind of the light blue. Let's see if yeah, right there where my finger is. See light blue coming down the side of the panel? That's a bleed, a color bleed. It's an imperfection. And all these things, and in fact, that one panel, let's go back to it, you can see the stipple, those, not the black dots, but below that, to give the color of the gray, those tiny little dots that give that white and gray, that's stipple, or at least the computer version of stipple. Let's go back to the cemetery. There is a very famous cemetery in Los Angeles where a lot of celebrities have been buried called Forest Lawn. And so I asked, was this kind of loosely set around Forest Lawn, if it's meant to be there? That would make sense for Oberon to be buried there. But now some of the real historical sites. The first one, this contains two. It's a 2-for-1. This location. Let's see there we go. So in the front, that pond, that is in MacArthur Lake, named after MacArthur. And let me put this, well, maybe I can hold it. Hold on. There we go. I'll give you the whole page, so you can look at that while I read. Okay, so MacArthur Park Lake was built in the 1880s and was named after General Douglas MacArthur in the early 1940s. Westlake Theater opened on September 22nd, 1926. The Westlake Theater is, you see it in the background there, the very top of the panel. You see that, the very top, the sign, Westlake Theater? It was built in September 22nd, 1926 at the cost then of $750,000. And I looked up what that would be with inflation, and in today's dollars, it would be $10.5 million for a movie theater. Quite absurd when you think about it. It's now a historical landmark. There's nothing there, but there are plans to open it as a kind of multi-purpose art space. And then the final place I want to go over is Santa Monica Pier, which has been in many TV shows, many movies. If you've played Grand Theft Auto 5, it's there. It's not called Santa Monica Pier, but it's there. And let's get to the, it's on the cover. I should give you the cover. Let's give you the cover. In the background where you see the Ferris wheel, that is Santa Monica Pier. And he goes there and he plays some boardwalk games. And the background for Santa Monica Pier was two piers. The first one was a municipal pier, which opened in 1909, and that was just to carry sewer pipes past the breakers. And then the pleasure pier opened in 1916 for the purposes of entertainment and tourism. Bang. And that's it for this episode of Mr. Miracle Review, issue number 5. I hope life finds you well. That's all for now. Take care and be well.